Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! In the shadows behind the curtain, a solitary figure trembled with anticipation. Hazel eyes darted back and forth, catching glimpses of the audience beyond the velvet barrier. Brown locks fell across a face illuminated by the soft glow of the dressing room light, barely concealing the nervous twitch beneath. With each passing second, the stage called, a beckoning void ready to devour its next performer. "Kevin, it's time!" A voice startled him from his reverie. He took a deep, calming breath, his fingers trailing across the sleek fabric of his midnight blue gown. As he stepped closer to the stage, every beat of his heart seemed to echo through the room. This wasn't merely a debut. It was the moment he'd step out of the shadows, an act of revelation on so much more than just a grand stage. The silky fabric against his skin was a comfort, grounding him in this surreal moment. 1 minute! He closed his eyes, centering himself. When he opened them again, Kevin was gone. In his place stood Catherine, confident, radiant, and ready to command the stage. The first chords of music drifted from the sound system. Catherine strode out, hips swaying in perfect time with the beat. Her high heels clicked rhythmically on the hardwood floor. As she approached the microphone, a hush fell over the crowd. Catherine's voice rang out, clear and strong. The lyrics flowed from her lips, telling a story of transformation and self-discovery. Each note carried the weight of years spent hiding, of dreams deferred. But there was joy there too, the exhilaration of finally stepping into the light. As the last refrain faded away, the audience erupted in thunderous applause. Catherine basked in their approval, drinking in the moment. For the first time in her life, she felt truly seen. Backstage once more, the adrenaline slowly ebbed. Catherine's hands trembled as she removed her wig, revealing Kevin's shorter brown hair beneath. He stared at his reflection, searching for some hint of the confident woman who had just commanded the stage. But all he saw was Kevin. Uncertain, conflicted Kevin. "You were incredible out there," a voice said. Kevin turned to see his bandmate Tom, leaning against the doorframe. "Thanks," he mumbled, suddenly self-conscious in the blue dress. Tom's eyes crinkled with concern. "You okay, man? You seemed so alive up there. But now—" Kevin sighed, sinking into a chair. "I don't know, Tom. When I'm Catherine, everything just feels right. But then the show ends, and I have to go back to being this." He gestured vaguely at himself. Tom was quiet for a long moment. "Have you ever thought that maybe Catherine isn't just a character? That maybe she's the real you?" The words hit Kevin like a physical blow. Of course he'd thought about it. He'd lain awake countless nights, turning the possibility over in his mind. But hearing someone else say it out loud made it suddenly, terrifyingly real. I can't," Kevin whispered. "My family, my career, I'd lose everything." Tom shook his head. "You don't know that. And even if you did, wouldn't it be worth it to finally be yourself?" Kevin had no answer. Tom squeezed his shoulder gently before leaving, giving him space to process. Alone in the dressing room, Kevin stared at his reflection once more. He thought about the feeling of freedom he'd experienced on stage, of the joy that had coursed through him as he sang. Slowly, hesitantly, he reached for the lipstick on his vanity. With a trembling hand, He applied a coat of deep red to his lips. The familiar routine calmed him, and he found himself adding eyeshadow, then mascara. As the familiar features of Catherine emerged, Kevin felt a sense of rightness settle over him. "My name is Kathleen," she said softly to her reflection. The words felt like coming home. The next few weeks passed in a whirlwind of change. Kathleen came out to her bandmates first, relieved when they responded with support and acceptance. Tom even offered to help her pick out a new wardrobe.
"I have to admit, I'm a little out of my depth here,"
he said, as they browsed through racks of dresses. "But I'm honored you asked me to come along." Kathleen smiled, holding up a green sundress. "What do you think of this one?" Tom tilted his head, considering. "I like it, but maybe in a different color? You look great in blue." They settled on a royal blue wrap dress that accentuated Kathleen's figure beautifully. As she emerged from the dressing room, Tom's eyes widened. "Wow," he said softly. "You look amazing, Kathleen." She blushed, smoothing down the fabric. "You really think so?" "Absolutely. This is you, 100%. Buoyed by her friend's support, Kathleen felt ready to face her next challenge, telling her family. She invited her parents over for dinner, stomach churning with anxiety as she prepared the meal. When they arrived, her mother immediately sensed something was off. "Kevin, honey, is everything all right? You seem nervous." Kathleen took a deep breath. "Actually, there's something I need to tell you both. Please, sit down." Her parents exchanged worried glances as they settled onto the couch. Kathleen perched on the edge of an armchair, hands clasped tightly in her lap. "Mom, Dad, I'm transgender. I've known for a long time, but I've been too afraid to say anything. I'm not Kevin anymore. My name is Kathleen." The silence that followed felt endless. Kathleen's heart pounded in her chest as she waited for their reaction. Finally, her father spoke. I don't understand. You've always been our son. How can you suddenly be a woman?" Kathleen shook her head. "It's not sudden, Dad. I've felt this way my whole life. I just didn't have the words for it until now." Her mother reached out, taking Kathleen's hand in her own. "Oh, sweetheart, I had no idea you were struggling with this. I wish you had felt you could tell us sooner." Tears welled up in Kathleen's eyes. "I was so scared of disappointing you both." "Never," her mother said firmly. "You could never disappoint us by being true to yourself." Her father still looked bewildered, but he nodded slowly. "This is a lot to take in. But you're our child, and we love you no matter what. We'll figure this out together." Kathleen's shoulders sagged with relief as her parents enveloped her in a hug. She knew there would be challenges ahead, but having her family's support meant everything. The next hurdle was her career. Kathleen's band had been steadily gaining popularity, and she worried about how fans would react to her transition. After much discussion with her bandmates and manager, they decided to be open and honest. Kathleen posted a heartfelt message on social media, explaining her journey and introducing herself as Kathleen. The response was overwhelmingly positive, with fans praising her bravery and pledging their continued support. Of course, there were some negative comments as well. Kathleen tried not to let them get to her, focusing instead on the outpouring of love she received. As she prepared for their first show since coming out, Kathleen felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. She'd chosen a stunning blue sequined gown for the occasion, wanting to make a statement. Backstage, her bandmates gathered around her. "You've got this," Tom said, squeezing her hand. Just be yourself up there. Kathleen nodded, taking a deep breath. As the intro music began, she stepped out onto the stage. The crowd erupted in cheers as she approached the microphone. Kathleen's voice rang out, strong and clear, as she launched into their opening song. With each note, she felt her confidence growing. During a break between songs, Kathleen addressed the audience. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. Your support means the world to me. This next song is very special. It's about finding the courage to be your true self. As the first chords played, Kathleen poured her heart into the lyrics. She sang of struggle and triumph, of fear and liberation. The audience swayed along, many wiping away tears. When the final note faded away, the applause was deafening. Kathleen bowed, overwhelmed by the response. In that moment, she knew she had made the right choice. This was who she was meant to be. After the show, Kathleen was approached by a young fan, eyes shining with admiration. Your music has always spoken to me, the girl said. But tonight, hearing you sing as your true self, it gave me hope. Thank you for being so brave. Kathleen hugged the girl tightly, her own eyes filling with tears. Thank you for accepting me, she whispered. As she made her way back to the dressing room, Kathleen was stopped by a familiar face, her high school music teacher, Mr. Anderson.
I always knew you were destined for greatness,
he said warmly.
But seeing you up there tonight, so comfortable in your own skin, that was truly special.
Kathleen smiled, remembering how Mr. Anderson had encouraged her to pursue music when she was still Kevin, too shy to even sing in front of the class. Thank you for believing in me, even back then.
I'm just glad you finally believe in yourself,
he replied. Back in her dressing room, Kathleen took a moment to reflect on how far she'd come. She thought about the scared, conflicted Kevin who had hidden behind a stage persona, afraid to show his true self to the world. Now, as Kathleen, she felt whole. The stage was no longer a place to hide, but a platform to express her authentic self. Her music had taken on new depth and meaning, resonating with audiences in a way it never had before. Of course, the journey wasn't over. There were still challenges to face, navigating relationships, dealing with the occasional bout of dysphoria, and continuing to educate others about transgender experiences. But Kathleen felt ready to face whatever came her way. She had a strong support system in her family, friends, and fans. More importantly, she had finally found peace within herself. As she removed her makeup and changed into comfortable clothes, Kathleen hummed softly. A new melody was forming in her mind, a song about transformation, acceptance, and the power of living authentically. She jotted down a few lyrics, excitement building as the song took shape. This would be her most personal work yet, a testament to her journey and an anthem for others struggling to find their place in the world. The next morning, Kathleen woke early, eager to get to the studio and work on her new song. She threw on a cozy blue sweater and jeans, running a brush through her brown hair before heading out the door. At the studio, she found Tom already there, strumming idly on his guitar.
Morning, Kathleen.
He greeted her with a smile.
You're here early.
Couldn't sleep, she admitted. I've got a new song idea I want to work on. Tom's eyes lit up.
Let's hear it.
Kathleen sat down at the piano, fingers hovering over the keys. She took a deep breath, then began to play. The melody flowed from her hands, raw and emotional. When she began to sing, her voice was soft but filled with conviction. hidden behind a mask of expectations, trapped in a role that never quite fit, but beneath the surface, a truth was waiting, a self I could no longer resist. As she sang, Kathleen felt tears pricking at her eyes. She poured all of her experiences into the lyrics, the fear, the doubt, and ultimately, the joy of self-discovery. When she finished, Tom was silent for a long moment.
Kathleen,
he said finally, his voice thick with emotion.
That was incredible. I think you've just written your first hit as yourself.
Over the next few weeks, the band worked tirelessly to polish the song. Kathleen's bandmates contributed their own ideas, helping to create a rich, layered sound that perfectly complemented the heartfelt lyrics. As they prepared to release the single, Kathleen felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. This song was so personal, so vulnerable. How would it be received? The day of the release arrived. Kathleen spent the morning refreshing social media, heart pounding as she waited for reactions. Within hours, the song was trending. Messages poured in from fans around the world, sharing how the lyrics had touched them. "Your song gave me the courage to come out to my parents," one fan wrote. "I've never felt so seen and understood," said another. Kathleen was overwhelmed by the response. She had hoped the song would resonate with people, but she never expected it to have such an impact. That evening, she received a call from a major talk show, inviting her to perform the song live. It would be her first televised performance since coming out. As she prepared for the show, Kathleen felt a familiar flutter of nerves, but this time it was mixed with excitement. She was no longer hiding behind a character. This was her chance to show the world who she truly was. The day of the show arrived. Kathleen chose a stunning blue gown that made her feel confident and beautiful. As she sat in the makeup chair, she chatted easily with the stylist, feeling none of the discomfort she used to experience as Kevin. Just before she was due on stage, Kathleen's phone buzzed with a message. It was from her parents. "We're so proud of you, sweetheart. Go show the world how amazing you are." Tears threatened to ruin her carefully applied makeup. Kathleen blinked them back, touched by her parents' unwavering support. As she was introduced, Kathleen took a deep breath and stepped out onto the stage. The lights were blinding, the audience a sea of expectant faces. But as she began to sing, everything else faded away. The performance was raw and emotional. Kathleen's voice soared, carrying the weight of her journey in every note. As the final chord faded away, there was a moment of stunned silence before the audience erupted in applause. The host approached, wiping away tears. "That was absolutely beautiful, Kathleen. Thank you for sharing your story with us." In the days that followed, Kathleen's performance went viral. It seemed like everywhere she turned, people were talking about her song and her journey. She received messages from transgender individuals around the world, thanking her for her visibility and courage. Of course, with increased visibility came increased scrutiny. Not everyone was supportive, and Kathleen had to learn to deal with negative comments and occasional harassment. But she refused to let it dim her light. Instead, she channeled her experiences into her music. Each song became a statement, a way to process her emotions and connect with others who might be struggling. As her career flourished, Kathleen found herself becoming an unexpected advocate for transgender rights. She used her platform to speak out against discrimination and push for better representation in the music industry. One day, she received an invitation that left her speechless. She was being asked to perform at a prestigious awards show. Not only that, but she was nominated for Song of the Year. The night of the awards show was a blur of excitement. Kathleen walked the red carpet in a breathtaking blue gown, feeling like she was living in a dream. As she posed for photos, she thought about how far she'd come from the days when she could barely look at herself in the mirror. When they announced the nominees for Song of the Year, Kathleen held her breath. She heard her name called, then nothing else, as the room erupted in cheers. In a daze, she made her way to the stage. Standing at the podium, clutching her award, Kathleen looked out at the sea of faces. She saw her parents in the audience, beaming with pride. Her bandmates were on their feet, cheering loudly. And there, in the front row, was Tom, the friend who had stood by her side from the very beginning. "I never dreamed I'd be standing here," Kathleen began, her voice shaky with emotion. "For so long, I was afraid to be myself. I hid behind characters and costumes, terrified of what would happen if I showed the world who I really was." She paused, taking a deep breath. "But I've learned that there's nothing more powerful than living your truth. This award isn't just for me. It's for every person out there who's struggling to find the courage to be themselves. To all of you, I say, you are valid, you are worthy, and you are so loved." As applause filled the room, Kathleen felt a sense of peace wash over her. She had found her voice, both literally and figuratively, and she would use it to sing her truth for as long as she could. In the years that followed, Kathleen's career continued to soar. She released album after album, each one pushing boundaries and challenging societal norms. Her music became a beacon of hope for LGBTQ+ youth, providing a soundtrack for self-discovery and acceptance. But even as her fame grew, Kathleen never forgot where she came from. She made a point of mentoring young transgender musicians, offering the support and guidance she wished she'd had when she was starting out. One day, as she was leaving the studio, Kathleen was approached by a young fan. The girl looked nervous, twisting her hands as she spoke. "Ms. Kathleen," she said hesitantly. I think I might be transgender, but I'm scared. How did you find the courage to come out?" Kathleen's heart went out to the girl. She remembered all too well the fear and uncertainty of those early days. Gently, she placed a hand on the girl's shoulder. "It's okay to be scared," she said softly. "Coming out is a big step. But you know what? The hardest part is admitting it to yourself. Once you do that, you've already shown incredible courage." The girl's eyes widened. "Really?" Kathleen nodded. "Really. And remember, there's no rush. Take your time, explore your feelings, and know that there are people out there who will support you, no matter what." As the girl thanked her and walked away, Kathleen felt a renewed sense of purpose. This was why she did what she did, not for the awards or the fame, but for moments like these. Moments where she could make a difference in someone's life just by being herself. That night, as she got ready for bed, Kathleen caught sight of herself in the mirror. She smiled at her reflection, taking in the soft curves of her face, the length of her brown hair. For a moment, she thought about Kevin, the scared, conflicted person she used to be. "We made it," she whispered to her reflection. "We're finally home." As she drifted off to sleep, Kathleen felt a deep sense of contentment. Her journey had been long and often difficult, but it had led her exactly where she was meant to be. And tomorrow she would wake up ready to face whatever new adventures life had in store, as her true, authentic self.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!